Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Peter Christian. I'm here with the host of the show, Diane Beck, with Windermere Real Estate. Diane has been helping buyers and sellers with real estate in the Missoula area for over 20 years and is very active in the Missoula community. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on NewsTalkKGVO.com. 98.3 FM and 1290 AM. Welcome, everybody. It's Missoula Real Estate Today, and we are thrilled and privileged and excited to have the maven of Missoula Real Estate Today, the founder herself, the fabulous Diane Beck.
Good morning, Peter. How are you? It's great to be back in the studio.
It is good to be back. Good to have you back.
Can you believe it's the end of summer? What the heck happened?
Well, I think I missed this one.
I think it just went by, and everybody I talked to in the last month has said this has been the quickest summer, and where did it go? And
my wife has said she had quite her fingers and toes crossed all summer, and that was very painful. But she said she was just waiting for that first big lightning fire, and we didn't get any.
No.
Now, we had plenty of smoke, but at least it wasn't our smoke.
Right, yeah.
And she said this was probably, in her memory, the nicest summer that we've had in a long time as far as nice hot weather, cool nights. It got up to 100, and then it cooled down into the 50s. And, we didn't have any rain for a while, but at least we didn't have any lightning.
No, I know.
So
there's
some good things.
Something, and we did have some smoke from the glacier and the Libby fires and other ones. But at the end of the day, I'm just excited. It's football.
Yes, ma'am. It is football season. We got the big game coming up, and of course, an entire season of excitement.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
let's talk about real estate.
Real estate stuff, yeah. And you and I were talking before before we actually got started here, and you weren't trying to make fun of me.
I wasn't at all,
because I'm an old gray-haired guy. But you were talking about there's got to be a way to help older people and be able to convince them gently that maybe it's time to give up your house and move to something that can be a little more managed. That's a tough transition for anybody.
It really is a tough transition, Peter. And, I think you and I and a lot of people I know in our age group have been dealing with this with their parents and other family members for some time. And, the greatest generation, they don't want the World War II,
Korea
and Korea War and all. They don't want to leave their home. That is their home base, literally, and and I understand that with all my heart. But what happens is at some point it doesn't become safe anymore.
Right.
They maybe are getting a little bit of Alzheimer's or dementia, and they don't remember to feed themselves and take their medicine and take a bath. And I've experienced this personally quite a bit the last couple of years, and so it's just a topic. I think it's a tough one to talk about.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of people saying, well, what did you do and how'd you deal with it? So it's a great real estate show topic because it's interesting because I get called out as the real estate professional to come sit down with the family and have this discussion all the time.
Yeah.
And, and I do it in a very matter-of-fact way. I mean, I don't have any skin in the game, if you will. Whatever they decide is their decision. So my role going in is to give options and to share thoughts and ideas. So, really first step is analyzing the situation.
Right.
What's going on there? We're not medical professionals. We're not there to assess their safety or their, security.
Well, here's what happens and I've been in my house for well over 25 years now. As people age and their world begins to get smaller, and they've been living in this house for 25, 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
That has become their world.
Correct.
And so there's got to be a way to say, okay, let's expand our horizons a little bit and very gently say, you know what? This is a beautiful house, but have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Exactly. When, and it depends on if they have stairs, if they have, unsafe conditions outside. Are they out, manicuring a acre of lawn like you are?
Yes.
And Bob, my husband is. At what point is that not okay anymore? And that's not my decision to make. That's the family's decision, right? But what I can come in and do is just talk about the process. I can talk about options. I can talk about personal experiences now that we've been through 3 years of losing family members and or transitioning family members. I actually moved my own mother from south of Billings to Austin, Texas.
Wow.
So talk about a major transition for someone. And it's because she was in an environment that wasn't safe and secure.
Sure.
So we took drastic measure and we actually physically moved her. And she's happy and doing really well.
How did she originally perceive that? When you first brought this up, she probably knew where she was living was not safe. But how much convincing did it really take?
You know, it really took a lot of convincing, and we actually started on it about a year prior to making the move. So May of 2017 is when really the conversation started. So it took about a full year. We moved her in May of 2018. And so it took a lot of, it took friends and church members and family members. It took a lot of people convincing her that she needed to make a move. So
allow me to ask, why Austin, Texas?
Just because that's where we have a lot of family.
Right.
And her goddaughter, my cousin, first cousin lives there, and her goddaughter, my cousin, wanted to take care of her.
Right.
She has a beautiful home. It's all on one floor. There's no stairs. There's no maintenance. It had always been her dream to take care of my mother, and I just find that fascinating.
Wow.
And I love it.
How cool is that?
And so
that's pretty rare.
it is. It's very rare.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, my mom's healthy and she's 87. She's doing really well. It was probably the best move she could have made. So the conversation's been, we probably should have done it 5 years ago. And that's what people talk about is, what does that timing look like? And every situation's different, right? There is not any cookie cutter way to sit down and go, you do this, you do this, you do this. Here's a checklist, handle it. Every situation's different. That's where myself or a real estate professional coming in, we can give it a different perspective.
Right.
We can give it a different third party, if you will, disinterested third party outlook. And it's a business conversation. It's not a personal conversation.
And you have a specific area of expertise.
I do.
Where you're not a social worker, you're not a doctor, you're not a nurse, you're not somebody trying to sell somebody something.
Correct.
You are there to offer advice on the real estate end.
Correct.
And if they can get a handle on that, then possibly some of the those other dominoes will fall.
Correct. Everything can fall into place, because really most people in their aging years, their home is their largest asset. If they do need to make a transition, that asset is probably going to pay for their care. So those are all the things that we can help point out, and we can do it in a business-like manner without any vested interest.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, we suggest a family meeting, having, if they have a son and a daughter and daughter-in-law, son-in-law, whatever, let's get everybody together and let's just have a really good conversation.
So what are the options for someone who's maybe in their 80s, who's had their house a long time, got some equity in it? What's available out there? Because, the price of things in Missoula is not going down.
Right. And so that's what that is a dilemma that we run into. And we are seeing a lot of seniors moving in with family members. We are seeing a lot of families creating an environment where there might be one or two houses on one piece of property. Where there's other options. There's, places like my father-in-law was at Grizzly Peak, independent living. It's just he had his own little apartment. He came and went, and he got fed 3 meals a day.
Great.
There are apartment buildings without that. There are small condominiums or houses that people can move into. When you're in
Clark Fork, Eagles Manor, there's
right?
Lots of available.
There are lots of opportunities.
And many of those are subsidized.
Correct. So depending on the budget and the price range, there are options available. It's very dependent on that. It's very dependent on, what does that nest egg look like and how long will it last? We want to maximize it. It also depends on their ability. If they're 80 and they are clear-minded, walking, talking, eating, taking medication, that's a whole different story than someone that's in a wheelchair.
Right.
So you've got all those different dynamics you've got to look at. And I think families tend to, and this is speaking for my own family, I think families tend to put their head in the sand and just hope that things work out. And that at the end of the day, that doesn't always happen in the best way.
Let me tell you what happens when the head is buried in the sand. That's when grandma falls down the stairs.
Correct.
Or that's when they're walking outside to get the mail, they slip and fall and break a hip.
Correct.
And at that point, the planning that you should have been doing in the last 2 or 3 years that you could just easily transition into, now you're in panic mode.
Correct. And that's exactly what happens in, I would say, probably 80% of the scenarios when I get called. Something tragic has happened, an accident, a fall, or a death, and now they have to deal with it. And so when I say in our family, head in the sand, it's really a lot of families. And some of it comes from, respecting your elders and not wanting to tell mom and dad it's time for you to move.
Right.
That we want to respect their decisions and opinions. But at some point, mom and dad, or together or separately, can't really make those logical choices. They just know they don't want to move. And it's overwhelming for them because they've been in their home 40, 50, 60 years.
Right.
I mean, I've only been in mine for 25 and it's overwhelming, right? And so I look at it like, and then when somebody comes in from the outside, maybe it's the real estate agent, maybe it's the estate planner, we bring a different perspective. And again, we're just here to lay out options. It's the family's choice as to what options they select.
And I think the wise children or grandchildren or in-laws or whatever who are the closest to these individuals,
right?
If they can figure out a way to make this a team effort, where it isn't just me imposing my will on you. You
Correct.
Can't take care of yourself anymore, so I'm going to have to come. Like that. That's the one thing nobody really wants to hear.
Yeah.
But if it's a team, you're tell me what you want. Tell me the kind of things that you're willing to do, and we will make it happen somehow. Right.
Yes, and that's exactly the approach we've found that has worked the best in all scenarios, even my personal family scenarios, and with other people. We're doing it as a team. We're doing it as family and professional advisors in a role that they can advise in.
Right.
And again, as those professional advisors, whether it's a CPA, an estate planner, a lawyer, a real estate agent, whichever one we might have at the table, again, all we can do is lay out options. There's so many options. And we narrow them down and give them a few, and then they have to decide.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of the role that we have found really, again, to work the best.
All right. So for folks who have questions about that, is that something they can talk to you about?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We love getting those phone calls. In fact, we're probably doing one or two of these consulting sessions a week.
Wow.
Literally. I've got another one. I think we have 2 lined up for next week.
Wow.
And I say consulting sessions. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not a psychologist by any means. I'm not an attorney by any means.
Yeah.
But we consult people and we advise them on their options and what's best available.
But what you do have is like between 25 and 30 years of real estate experience, right?
Yes.
And you've seen the markets come and go, up and down and waver and whatever. There's
Yes.
some really good, some really bad. And there are times when sometimes the timing is just right for this family to say, you have arrived. Glad we had this conversation today, because there are options within the next 3 to 6 months that will really be perfect for your family.
Correct, exactly. And that's what's really good about, again, our position is we're just going to show them different choices. We'll even take them out, show them like physically on the ground, or the family will, or whatever. And,
right.
That's probably the best thing to do. And I think that when our aging family gets to the point where they know in the back of their mind
right.
that it's just one trip away from a bad accident, that that's when they realize that, okay, maybe we better do this. And so that's the good timing to bring them in and just really have those really frank conversations.
And who knows? I mean, when somebody who may be in their 80s goes with you and the in-laws out to where you're showing them a house, they might get really excited and say, this is exactly what I've been thinking of.
And that's what we find. And they love the fact they don't have any more lawn to mow and no maintenance. And when we show them the positives, they really understand it. But until they get out and understand that,
right.
And again, it's a big deal. it is really a big deal to relocate, your 85-year-old mother or father or both of them,
right?
To transition them. But that's where we have the ability to talk them through, kind of the fear of what's going to happen next. We've done this so many times, personally and professionally,
Sure,
that we can, we can't answer every question, but we can get really close.
All right, good deal. So we've covered that. Now let's jump into the market. I mean,
sure.
I've been hearing all sorts of varied things about going on in the real estate market.
Well, what are you hearing, Peter?
Well, I'm hearing that the market is still hot, but it's not as hot as it was.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that when I could have gotten this much, now maybe I won't get quite that much, but then the house I'm going to buy won't be quite that much either.
Right.
So,
yeah, well, all that's true. That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're done now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Peter's view of the real estate market.
Okay, yeah. Well,
Excuse me. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, that's really what we're seeing and hearing. Things are flattening a little bit. They're not falling. The sky is not falling, people.
Right.
What's really happening, honestly, is there's more inventory. So when you supply and demand, Econ 101, you have more supply, and we still have good demand, which is really awesome because people still want these, 4 to 5% interest mortgages.
right.
And so we still have good buyers out there. But as we add more inventory, things kind of flatten or plateau a little bit, and that's what's happening.
So this is a natural fluctuation of the market.
It really is.
Right.
Things were kind of crazy, and they still are in certain price ranges, certain neighborhoods. Things are still kind of crazy, but not as crazy as they were. So the good news is for the buyers, there's more inventory. Sellers, some price ranges are flattening a little bit. We've seen a little bit of that in the university area, but mostly across the board where prices were getting too high, they needed to come down a little bit.
I would imagine that there is one factor in this type of market that is really advantageous, and that is the matter of time. Because back when things were going just a mile a minute, you put your house on, boom, get 12 offers, whatever.
Yeah.
And now I go, do I sell? Where do I go? I got so you didn't have time to make any really wise decisions.
Right. Well, and so that's a big dilemma also in the market. We've got we have had a very large increase of real estate people getting in the business, and we welcome everyone, right? But the other side of that is they haven't been in the downturns, and they don't know what the next turn of events is going to be. And so I just warn people to be really pretty careful out there because there's as the market's changing, so is the real estate professional level of experience. So
yeah, and I think what happens as the real estate market begins to take off, then that resurgent, oh gosh, I want to get into this business now, and then they just get in just as it's starting to come down the other side.
And that's exactly what's happening. We're up. I just found out yesterday we're up over 250 real estate agents.
Wow.
In the last 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So and now things are going to soften a little bit. People, it's just the natural, the way things are going to go, and I think we'll see a few drop out, but it's not crashing. The market's still really good.
Right.
Missoula has a really solid market. People want to live here. As long as we've got good inventory and rates stay low, I think we're going to stay the course.
There are so many variables that enter into buying a house anymore. You not only look at the price, but you're going to talk about property taxes.
Right.
You're going to talk about are there any covenants? Are there any SIDs on the land? And this is where, and I know I tap this nail every time I talk to you or any realtor,
right?
Is can you handle all this stuff by yourself? I mean, are you really that good on the internet that you can figure all this stuff out and then come to closing with no surprises and no problems? I don't think so.
Yeah. It's a challenge. I mean, in today's world of technology, people think it might be easier. It's actually become a little bit more complicated.
In what way?
There's scams. There's wiring scams. There's real estate deeding scams. There's all kinds of weird stuff going on out there. And the average Joe, unless they see it multiple times, they don't really know that's a scam.
Not only that, but there are scams that are going to pretend to repair your credit for you.
Correct.
And you pay this $5,000, $10,000, whatever the fee is, and they disappear, and your credit is still bad.
Yes, and there's rental scams, and I had one this week. I had it looked like a very well qualified buyer, and they were not from Nigeria, but they wrote a very eloquent how they wanted to buy a house, and they had been pre-approved with Wells Fargo,
Right.
and I kept looking and thinking something's not right here, and it was a scam.
Something
And
stinks in Denmark.
there was no money, there was nothing lost, but it's like, there's just so much weird stuff out there.
See, but there's the difference, because you've been doing this for long enough where you can spot just a little tiny crack in that armor and say, wait a minute, this does not sound
There's
right.
something not, give it the sniff test,
Yeah,
right? There's not something just not quite right.
And if it's too good to be true, then
Yes. And it's usually not
probably
true.
not true.
Yeah.
So-
And so, that 25 years worth of, background in real estate, I've the school of hard knocks, over that period of time, I've learned a lot. And, I think that it's in any real estate transactions are your largest investment, selling or buying in your life.
Right.
I mean, it's just a fact of it. Unless you're a multimillionaire and you're selling corporations and large businesses or apartment buildings, your real estate's your largest investment. So make sure you have a real estate professional that knows what they're doing and has the knowledge and the background to make sure that we know what is going to happen almost before it happens.
Right. Let's talk about the various price points. Somebody that's looking for a house under $275,000. What's that market like
It's a really good market. It's really 300 and under is a really strong market. You go, the next up is 3 to 350. It's very still strong, not quite as.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite as easy to get $350,000, mortgages on those homes.
Right.
And then, every step up you go, it gets a little bit more difficult. We're seeing a real lull in the 500 to 500,000 to $1 million. A lot of inventory, not a lot of movement right now. But it's really interesting because buyers are out there, and again, if you're priced right and you're in a good neighborhood and the house looks good, it's going to sell. And if you overprice it, it's not going to sell. And we have so many people saying, well, my neighbor said I should be able to get 30,000 more than da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, well, tell your neighbor to buy your house.
Yeah.
Because, and it's so funny because it happens all the time. And it's like, we do our sales data. We know what has sold and what the comparable sales say. And we have to be within reason.
Would you mind just for those maybe just listening for the first time, a comparative market analysis?
Sure.
What is that?
Comparative market analysis. We take a look at your home, the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, location, amenities, size of lot, improvements, etc. And we compare it to other homes in the neighborhood as close in proximity as possible that have sold and closed. And so those are what we analyze the valuation on your house. That's what an appraiser does.
Right.
That's what a real estate agent does. It's not always super easy because in Missoula, things are not quite cookie cutter.
Right.
We do have some subdivisions it's much easier in. But Missoula is very unique in neighborhoods and pricing. And so sometimes we have to step across a major intersection and go to the next neighborhood to get
Right.
good sales data. But
Right.
that's where knowing what those adjustments should be is really important.
I'm talking with Diane Beck, of course, in Windermere Real Estate. This is the Diane Beck Show, Missoula Real Estate Today. So where are the areas where somebody who's well qualified and looking for a nice house, what are the areas where you're looking at? Right now?
We are still seeing a lot of activity, kind of the northwest corner of town out in the Mullen Road area, a lot of new construction, a lot of homes out there that have been for sale. We're Linda Vista, south, the south west corner, again. The central part of town, it's a little harder to get homes get into because there's not a lot for sale.
Right.
I think the Rattlesnake and Grant Creek are still super popular, but again, not a lot for sale. So it really, the buyers' desire to where they want to live and what their price range really dictates where they're going to go.
I have noticed that there's a right above me, just up the road. There's a great big development up there with lots of new houses going in.
There is.
And so, what are the price ranges in those?
Those are starting in the mid threes and going up from there.
Okay.
That's a pretty nice little subdivision. That just reminded me I need to drive up there I haven't been up there for a few weeks and see what's all popped up.
Oh, it's amazing how they've been able to connect the streets. So
Yeah.
you're able to continue going up and all this and
The
and
powers
all those.
that be did some good planning up there because
Yes.
it is very well connected. I know. I just know you can't get from Linda Vista into that neighborhood directly without going through kind of
Right.
up
Kind of a patchwork
kind
sort
of
of deal.
Yeah, but there's good stuff and there's a lot. Again, the good news for everybody out there is the inventory is increasing, and as we get more houses for sale, that's really good for everyone.
Now we're going into the fall, so
Mm-hmm.
so do you see a natural decline in some of these deals or what?
This is my spiel the last 2 weeks or so because I get that question a lot as we're moving into school starting and stuff. I think we're going to have a really good market September, October, November. I think we're, our winter months, typically a lot of snow, a little bit of cold, hopefully not a lot of cold this year, knock on wood.
Right.
It's going to be a little bit slower, and then we'll pick up again after the first of the year.
Sure.
So we talk about, the Christmas holiday season, take your house off the market. I really think unless you have to sell,
Enjoy the holiday.
enjoy the holidays from
Right.
Thanksgiving to after New Year's.
Right.
Take a little break in the market, and we recommend that most of the time, unless people are getting relocated
Right.
and absolutely have to sell.
So for buyers, what is your suggestion for them? We have like 2.5 minutes left in the show.
The buyers need to know that there's good inventory out there coming. There's a lot of stuff going to hit the market. Rates are still great. Get pre-approved. Buyers get pre-approved. That helps so much. I think we've hit that home a lot the last
Yes.
10 years, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
And so people just, it's like, I think we're going to see a real balance in the market, and I think it's really good for everyone.
So tell us about some of your partners. I know you've been expanding your list of partners.
I've been working with lots of people. I'll tell you what, we're having some fun. And we've got Miles Link. Opportunity Bank's been a huge partner from day one with this radio show and the statewide radio show. Rob Fleming over at Man Mortgage does a great job. Of course, Western Title and Escrow. Carol Blodgett, Make It Missoula. We've partnered with her on a couple new projects. We love Carol, and she loves us. Make It Missoula if you're looking at whatever's going on in Missoula. But big partnerships. We got some new stuff coming, and just a lot of good stuff happening all across. If our listeners don't know, we took the show statewide about a little over a year ago.
Right.
And so we're on stations across the state.
Yay.
It's super fun, and we're having a good time with that and changing that up a little bit. But I hear from so many Missoula listeners that they listen to the show, and now they're back to back on Sunday morning. And I'm like, you're listening to us for that long on
Wow.
a Sunday?
Yes.
But you know what? It's good because we're just here to provide information to people. That's our job.
Right. Okay. So with about a minute left in the show, tell us why we should choose Diane Beck.
I think it's just, again, experience and knowledge and the ability to really help people through the puzzle, if you will, put the pieces of the puzzle together.
And going back to the start of our conversation, too, with
Right.
helping with the elderly folks, because you have the experience now.
Exactly. And it's kind of knowing what to expect. And we don't always figure everything out, but we have a pretty good idea how things might go. So we're able to kind of be able to help people foresee maybe potential problems. Not that something doesn't, I swear, every week something happens that I did not know.
Sure.
And it happened again last week. And that's a whole show in itself.
Well, tell you what, let's get some contact information,
Sure.
that sort of thing.
Listeners, we love you. Give us a call at 406-360-7654. Diane Beck at Realtor.com on email. Just find me. We want to help you get through all of your real estate needs. And if you're relocating or wanting to buy, we want to help you.
Well, don't be a stranger. Get in here again.
All right, I'll be back.
Thank you, Diane. Diane Beck from Windermere Real Estate. That's going to do it for Missoula Real Estate today. On behalf of Diane, I'm Peter Christian here on KGVO. We certainly appreciate you joining us. Hope you'll be with us again next week on Missoula Real Estate Today. Thanks for tuning into Missoula Real Estate Today. We hope you found the information over the last 30 minutes to be helpful. If you have any suggested topics for future Missoula Real Estate Today programs, or any questions about buying or selling real estate, please email Diane. Here's the address. It's Diane Beck at Realtor.com. That's Diane Beck at Realtor.com. We'll see you next week on NewsTalk KGVO.com 98.3 FM, and 1290 AM.